But it is 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 on the East Coast. I can't do the math on the West Coast, but I'm here with Tara. She is a repeat offender on the podcast, but this is our first conversation here on Purple Acorn. So for anyone who does not know you, I don't know how many people in the world do not know you at this point. Tell everyone who you are and what you do best.
Tara Turk-Haynes. I own Equity Activations. We are a consulting company that helps people do people operations more equitably, embedding equity into your operations, auditing, recruiting, performance reviews, employee engagement, all of that, just to make it sustainable.
Let's start off with some definitions for everybody out there.
Yeah.
Let's define equity in the sense of the workplace.
Equity in the sense of the workplace basically means that all of your people have equal access to be able to develop themselves the best way possible. This means we're addressing microaggressions, we're addressing biases, systemic, all of that as well, because our systems are not always set up. What does that translate to real world? Well, what if I'm saying I need a marketing coordinator and on the job description, I need you to have graduated from Harvard? You know what I mean? Like, that's not necessarily equitable. What are we saying if we have somebody, we say we believe in internal mobility. We've got somebody who is as a child of an immigrant, English as a second language, started off as an accounts payable clerk. Why can't they actually become CFO at some point?
Why not?
Right. So how are we removing all of these challenges within the workplace so that people have access to be able to have the same access to be successful?
Right. And how do we get companies to not, so it's not just lip service, but, actually practice what you preach, right? It's one thing for the external POV optics, versus are you really doing it internally? So when we look at the acronym, and I think we certainly talked about this when you were on my show earlier this year. When we talk about DEINB, which one is the most misused, misunderstood, bastardized? Just they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Diversity is always.
How do you define diversity?
Well, diversity. There's 40 plus social identities that make up who we all are, or who we all could possibly be. We're talking about people whose English as a primary language. We're talking about socioeconomic diversity. We talk about race, ethnicity, veteran status, your sexuality. We are talking about geographically, right? Sometimes
there's geographic bias. Yes.
Major metropolitan cities, usually sometimes people think you're much more refined and you're more. There's so many different kinds of biases and stereotypes that we don't address as individuals, and we do bring that to the workplace unless you've done the work as an individual, right?
Right. And it's removing biases, and I think removing biases really starts at the end. It has to be at the individual level, where you could have the self-awareness. And listen, biases come in different shapes and forms, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person. I mean, you think about unconscious bias. We're all raised in different households. We're brought up different ways, and you know what? You're gonna get the flavor of how you're brought up.
Unless you do the work to unpack, like in general, your childhood trauma, across the board, right? But I do tell people it's not always somebody who's going to be in a white hood who's going to be barring you to be successful. Sometimes it's somebody's ingrained stories that have been passed down in their family, stories that they've heard in college, traumas, any of those kinds of things. And unless you are hyper aware, again, we all lived in our lived experience, right? It's all of our lived experiences are different. Until we get more curious about other people's lived experiences, we're still going to keep bumping into our stereotypes, and they're going to prevent us from knowing people better.
And the more you're comfortable knowing what your biases are, and you have the self-awareness there. For example, as a recruiter, I found early on, and I've talked about this before, we did an exercise, a beta test with a company. They screened for inbound applications if you were being biased towards names that weren't common to you. And I actually skewed a little bit in that direction. I was like, holy shit. And I was like, doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It's just something that I was doing subconsciously. But that brought that to my attention. And I became conscious and aware and intentional to pause if I saw a name that wasn't I couldn't pronounce it, or it looked foreign.
What if there's a school that you didn't know about, right? It's a great school. We talk about
liberal arts school that you have no clue, but it's actually a top 5 school, right?
HBCUs had that problem for the longest time. Howard University is sometimes on the same playing field as Harvard, but if you don't have that experience of Howard University, then you might reject a candidate and saying like, no, I really wanted someone from an Ivy League. Not knowing that historically, a lot of us were barred from being in an Ivy League school. Not just black people, but Jewish Jewish people, like across the board.
Are we moving away from the college? Like, what are your thoughts on moving away from the college degree required for so many jobs?
I don't necessarily think we should have ever had college degrees required for every job. I think there are
We're
some
talking very
jobs
general
that are-
speaking. I want my doctor to have a college degree.
Of course.
My lawyer to have a college degree.
Exactly.
Right?
But
my accountant.
Well, see, this is the other thing is that we were presented with this idea, I'm a Gen X person. So Gen X was told if we go to the right school, if we get the right education, we will have the right life. We will have the right career.
That's how we were
And
raised.
it's not true, right? Essentially, we were feeding into a system that thrived on through student loans, interest rates, debt, right? So the whole thing about that is, the market changed, the job changed. We don't have the same job market our boomer parents had.
Very, very different. Now, let's shift gears a little bit. Talk about the article that you brought up before. Read us. Enlighten us. What's the title here?
So I don't know if you saw the cut from New York Magazine today, but it says the job search has become a humiliating experience for job seekers. And it's true. I think that we are at a recruiting conference, right? And I would love for us to kind of dive in a bit more and talk about the human experience behind people applying for hundreds and hundreds of jobs and just not getting anywhere, or the experience that they're having when they're not getting anywhere.
I want to talk about it, and I'm going to be very candid here from a recruiter standpoint.
Yeah.
I've been on the other side of that fire hose as an in-house recruiter, and there is just such a tremendous volume of applications for two reasons. One, because of the economy, layoffs, and certain tech-taking roles, and there's a lot of really good people that are out of work. So if you're out of work right now,
it's not your fault. This market is terrible.
Really if you're like a B-level, player, it's going to be real hard because companies have the pick of the litter right now. And I get it. Like, if you're a company, you want the best.
Yeah.
That's just so.
Well, the article also talks about the fact that we have an influx of technology that has made it easy for many people to mass apply.
That's what I was going to get into. So, the technology is making it so easy, and it's not doing any good for the job seeker because it's not managing their expectations. It's saying, Tara, we're going to 10x your amount of applications. You say, oh, cool, I'm gonna get a job tomorrow. No,
right.
Because what it's doing is, it's spraying and praying. Unless you're dialing in and taking control. Yes, there are some good tools and products out there, but most of them are crap. They're taking advantage of job seekers.
Which is why I think the conversation between a recruiter and candidate needs to be a bit more candid, but the recruiter doesn't have time to do this. So there's a catch-22, and I don't know the answer to this, but we have recruiters who are out there talking about, how awesome their ability to use AI to make their jobs easier, or we have recruiters out there, slamming people for using AI to format their resume because it looks like slop. And then you have people who are literally, last night I saw an article about a woman who had 13 interviews with one company, and she was down to, she had 30 job interviews over the past 2 years. This last one, she had 13 interviews, one company, it was down to her and one other person. They went with the other person. She's been out of work for 2 years. She decided to go to a Buddhist temple because it's free room and board. She can't afford. She's been living off her 401k. No, we have a dire situation happening, and I really want us to be able to have grace in this kind of conversation between the two of us, but we don't seem to have that. People are desperate. Recruiters are overwhelmed. Yeah. Who's going to solve this problem?
And is it the technology, or is it technology, as this article says? We're down to literally bot on bot right now, and that's we're at the bottom.
Well, and the thing is,
the only way up, there's only way to go is up.
And the thing that makes it really important for me, because my community is the most impacted. Black Americans are the ones who have the highest rate of unemployment right now.
Why?
7.5, because we're always the lowest. We're the least. We're the most affected in any kind of situation because of microaggressions, biases, not equal opportunities. We are canaries in the coal. I don't know if you've seen Katika Roy's research that she's been talking about on LinkedIn forever, but there are 300 plus black women who've been out of work, 300,000 plus black women who've been pushed out of work since January. And the HR community, I feel like, has been relatively silent, save for a few people, to talk about what does our allyship actually look like? And I'm not just talking about allyship for my community, but I'm also talking about, what about those people who are all out of work that we just talked about, right? All of those people who feel humiliated in applying for a job, they're going to remember your company and how you treated them.
How was the experience?
How was the experience? And I did a post on LinkedIn where I said, you can't slam someone for using AI to format their resume and then turn around and use the same rejection ATS template that came with your platform, because you sound just like everyone else. Some of these companies aren't even putting the job name in it.
My favorite thing that companies do on a rejection email, and I try to do this manually also, is using the technology. Hey, you're sorry this didn't work out for you.
Yeah.
But here's either other roles within an organization, or here's a link to some other resources as a job seeker. Here's some other
I
tools.
completely
and it doesn't
did that.
take that much effort.
It doesn't. I did that
Setup.
probably 6 years ago when I was in-house. I oversaw recruiting for a parent company, and what we did is we put the social handles of the companies that we recruited for. We did some job tips as well, like what are interview tips, how resume formatting, how to practice interviewing, all of those different things. It doesn't take a lot. It takes, and you tweak it as you go.
You set it up.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because it doesn't take that much effort just to help someone that one extra step. So let's talk about some positivity.
Yeah.
What are some of these signs of light, signals of hope that you're seeing out there? I want to end this chat on a positive. We've been talking a lot of doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Because it's real and it's what's really happening.
We should be talking about the real and but what I really am optimistic about is yesterday, I think her name was Diana Tsai, who does Upwage, was talking about using AI in a way that is not geared towards reducing your recruiter headcount, but giving time back to your hiring manager.
Mm-hmm.
So, essentially her theory was, every time she talks about this, the VCs and the investors go, okay, so if we use this tool, how many of our recruiters can we lay off? And she said, you're thinking about it the wrong way. What we're talking about essentially is you're giving your hiring manager time back to do their actual jobs and not be, recruiters.
Right, because you still need to.
That's how we should be using this, is how do we make the community better?
Right, instead of just reducing it down to bot on bot. So what's keeping you up at night these days?
The world, the state of the world, the state of the world, the news. I try not
everything.
I try not to watch the news. I only read it. That makes my my nervous system a little bit less
That's
wild.
a great tactic, by the way.
Yeah, I can't hear it. It makes me too nervous.
Makes me angry.
Yeah, so if I read it, I'm like,
good. The news is never good.
No. I mean,
there's bad news.
Yeah, but we have great weather. We're in community here. There's a lot of great people. We're talking about great things, so that makes me really happy.
What do you love about this community?
The desire to be better is always there. Even if the execution doesn't always work, sometimes we keep trying.
The intention's there.
Yeah.
Tara, where can folks find you? Where can they connect? Where can they learn more?
equityactivations.com. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on TikTok. Not as great as the Realist Recruiter.
He's the best.
I know, but I'm there.
The best TikToker in the history of the world.
I'm trying to mimic his social media plan,
Awesome.
but not
All right,
working.
thank you so much for joining us.
So good to see you. So good to see you. Seriously, you look wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Okay.